Hey there, everyone. Let's talk about Tesla. Something I think we should have done a couple of days ago earlier, and sadly, I was just very, very busy. But some of you may even remember and recall this chart from about 4 months ago when I was talking about when we were still on our way. We were still, if you go and follow up on the lives I was making roughly at around March 2025, if it's roughly around April here, already towards the bottom. In fact, I remember still when the market was still dropping and everybody were running around like headless chickens, tearing their hair off their head and thinking the market is going to continue going down because that's how most retail is and are. Um, if the market is going down, then it's going to continue going down. So if the sentiment is bearish, then the retail are very easily convinced that things are just going to deteriorate and get worse. And back then, I was explaining how things are going to turn around. In fact, highlighting these levels that basically have been tested before. If we're talking about at 340 handle here at November 2024, right here again at February 2025. And now we're basically retesting the very same levels. And as we were moving down here, I was saying that you can watch my videos, which are still in the channel, by the way. The community is well aware of me predicting these things. In fact, back then we were predicting that the overall handle around this corrective movement will end up being roughly around 300. One of my members and students and admins, Mustang Nama, has actually said right away while we were doing that. In fact, I remember that it's going to be 333, and it had ended up being 333. This is the major psychological level around which we are entangled right now. If in fact, if you look closely and zoom in right now, you're going to realize that in fact, we're at that very same level. We are entangled within it, which right now 333. Here it is highlighted on the screen. And here basically was the highlight of how these levels going to get retested. And those who remember this chart, that was literally what was the prediction. Of course, slightly adjusted. It was kind of, I think, like so. And I was highlighting how we may have a wave going this way, then another one even higher, just moving us back into this sort of downwards formation, eventually overtaking. As you can see, we've been having this downwards approach ever since. Of course, by creating these lower highs and somewhat would argue even to some extent lower lows, barring this sort of transitional period. Although this, of course, you tell, is not positive for the market in any other way. I mean, if we look at Tesla on the whole grand scheme of things, if we look at their numbers, their total revenue has been going down. If we compare Q1 to Q1, we realize Q1 is naturally just not great. So, I mean, that's kind of why. Also, on top of things, we got maybe a bad Q1. So now moving into Q2, the real question is whether the numbers are going to be even worse, whether the rogue's profit is going to be even lower, which we see quite a significant decrease from Q4 2024 to Q1 2025 right here. We can see a significant decrease on total revenue, on the operating income, anywhere and everywhere. On the metrics that we do want to see an increase, we are seeing a significant decrease, whether it's due to overall economic conditions, due to Elon Musk's shenanigans due to decreasing demand, decreasing production, just name it. So, in the grand scheme of things, if we're going to look at revenue, on one hand, we are seeing an increase from 2023 on energy generation and storage. We are seeing a bit of an increase. On the grand scheme of things, for example, if we look at the difference between 2023 and 2024, we realize that here we had finished up with 96, roughly 96.78 billion. But that's due to mostly to the automotive. And here, if automotive is decreasing, right, in 2024, energy generation and storage is increasing. So we're kind of seeing that mix. Of course, we understand Tesla is highly AI involved. And if we're looking at the robotics side, if we're looking again at energy generation and storage, the automotive right now is suffering very badly due to Elon Musk's shenanigans. Him and Trump, of course, having various disagreements and all that. but this is not what we're here for. Everyone is aware of these things. And so if we're going to see a decrease on the automotive side of things, where it's not going to be all that surprising. What we're here for is for the technicals. Arguably, those things already have everything calculated in and will show us exactly what is the path that the market is making for its own self. Now, there is a caveat with Tesla. It's something I've been highlighting in my community. Again, shout out to my amazing community, which is growing, and we are basically, we were completely aware of this. In fact, predicting these very particular levels, this very particular sort of behavior, join in through the Patreon. Once you all join through the Patreon, through patreon.com/investory. Once you do that, you will be sent information to how to join Discord, right? When you join Discord, you will recognize that everything and all the entire, all the information that I put out, whether it is just kind of a quick look at our Discord right here, whether it's being alerted whenever I, make any videos, whether it's members exclusives, right? Ad-free content that the members get just for themselves and no one else, or whether it's member meetings that we record and everyone can then watch back and sort of be up to speed. Then we have advanced meetings, which include a little bit more advanced tools and material. And then, of course, we have the academy meetings, which we just sort of started doing, although I do individual meetings with one-on-one with the students. And now we're also doing these group meetings once a week. So basically, the academy members, they get up to 3 meetings a week, not including their individual session. So highly recommend that you join the community. It is very cheap right now. In fact, if you look here, that's how you go. Patreon.com/investory. Become a member. If you switch that little thingy here, or that little ticker right here, you get to pay $24 instead of 30 a month, and you get all these wonderful perks. In fact, you can see a breakdown of the perks. You'll see my portfolio. You'll be up to speed on various technical discussions that we have, pictures and up to speed sort of information on charts that I post to my members all the time. All sorts of cool things. In fact, here it is. You'll be able to join that very thing right here, have a discussion with the members, talk about things, see pictures, watch videos, discuss with us, talk to me directly, and all sorts of awesome things. Now, back to the analysis. If we're going to look objectively at where Tesla is located and how it is related to the overall markets, to the indices, and again, as I said, my community is fully aware of that. It's something we discussed before. So what you realize that we are kind of sitting at this point of transition where normally we will see a crossover between the forces, and normally what was dominant right now will become recessive, and subsequently the market will start deteriorating, because if the bearish momentum takes over and becomes dominant, that is what we will see mainly in the price action. Now, we already been seeing on the weekly chart, if we're kind of moving into the body of the stochastic RSI, on the monthly chart, we in fact are and have been all along below that 50 range, which implies that we are actually in bearish territory and far more bearish than bullish in reality, and are seeing again the confluence of the forces, the convergence of the K and the D, which implies once that red line takes over and becomes dominant, basically the one that is on top, right? If we're saying that this represents this bullish momentum, green wave that we had, unsurprisingly so, it is represented by that moving average that it is the stochastic RSI, and showing us that the dominance right now of the momentum is as such, so it pushes higher, basically, for in other terms for us, bullish. And when it overturns or basically comes to a point where it dies down or has no more bullish momentum, no more buying, there is no buying force in the market right now, and there's more selling going on into the market, what we will see is that these forces will overturn, and we will say basically our D that represents a delayed moving average, which represents our bearish momentum. And when it takes dominance, it signifies the overall momentum of the market transitioning in more to the bearish side. Of course, this is not the ultimate indicator. It has caveats and things about it, and you do need to be completely aware of the cycle, which is the thing that I'm trying to mention when I talk about the indices. For example, if we're going to be objectively looking at this, and it's monthly right now, we're going to realize that really, really, really what's going on, we are entangled with that very same resistance or support, if you will, that median upwards moving trend. And we've been right now testing that very same sort of junction, and something I warned about between these various trends that are overlapping each other. And so subsequently, we get these crossroads between the forces, and they interfere with each other, and that interference creates these um, sort of stuttering movements locked within very narrow ranges, and retests over retests over retests of the very same support and resistance levels. Given this structure right now, some may think, oh, it looks very, 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 very bullish, but in reality, it is overturning. Most of our time frames are bearish. We know numbers may come in very, very bad today on Tesla, whether it's because of Elon's shenanigans or actual production issues or lower demand, which are subsequent to his shenanigans. Or it's because the technicals are already signaling and indicating that the bears are quickly overtaking and taking dominance, and the market is far more bearish than bullish. We haven't yet reached, for example, already here the oversold territory, but once we reach, we break below 20, the market will become even farther more bearish, bringing us slower potential this downwards a trend, at least on the 1 hourly time frame as we see it, slowly post breaking that 326, retesting again that 312. So basically moving us closer back to 300, potentially closing that leftover gap that we have right here, right below 300 at 296. We have a little bit of a gap. So that will be very, very, very much like the market, of course, may get started right here on that median on the way down. Then, of course, a retest at 280 handle, and then a retest upwards back to 300 before continuing that breakdown, just kind of like this. Yeah, that is the expectation, the current expectation. We still may see the market go higher to roughly retest that 340, right? Before we initiate that breakdown, it's going to be very, very common. In fact, as you can see, for the market, it's not completely abnormal to even break out of that resistance, have a couple of retests, or over time fail, run out of bullish momentum, basically run out of buyers, and over time start breaking downwards in various potential paths. But you get the idea. This is the general potential path, not exactly one-to-one. It's almost a sketch, if you will, of a potential path downwards, given the conditions. Now, conditions are also very highly correlated to the SPX. And just made a video, by the way. I hope it's already been uploaded while I'm making this video. And I was talking about how I expect the market to open up roughly around these areas, 6,333. As I was literally naming these areas, and then the expectation is for the market to start breaking down to close that gap, leading to more bearish momentum because sort of in the system. Of course, we still will have some bullish momentum as well, so it's not straightforward. And although we've been conquering these new all-time highs or new higher highs, we are actually moving within a very narrow band. And instead of having this very upwards inkling, where we're kind of moving more to the start, to the sideways, if you will, which is very indicative before a true sideways movement, before we break down. And sometimes it may actually take over sooner than expected. It doesn't necessarily have to go through that sideways period. It may be already sort of hidden within the framework of what we're doing right now, slowly deteriorating, not noticing that what is happening is the price action transitioning from a very steep kind of angle to more of a sideways angle, breaking below that purple resistance that you'll see me mentioning in the SPX video, talking about the major resistance that's played its role a long, long, long time ago before, and sort of came into being a long, long time ago. As you can see, sort of that was the time before, and you can see there's no cheating here. I'm going all the way back, and we can see this major resistance played its role multiple times. Now we are roughly around 2015, right? Kind of when the price action landed on top of that resistance line that has been playing a significant role since its it's a rather narrow band on the external side of the larger channel that we're seeing, but still that resistance has played a role multiple times, as you can see. It is tremendously accurate and very well known by the market. In fact, arguably that was the same thing that stopped us during COVID back then. And now we are meeting that resistance again. And not just that. I mean, again, we've seen it get tested right here, and now we're basically moving into the framework of that very same resistance again, potentially, as we see with the momentum kind of moving to more of the sideways direction rather than upwards. So it is indicative of the momentum dying down, if you put in simpler terms. The bullish momentum, rather. Or the momentum in general, because the momentum, once it dies down, it's the equivalent of having a plane running out of fuel in the middle of the air and both its engines, exploding or whatever. And so it starts to sort of fall down, right? Lose altitude and drop closer to Earth's gravity, if you will. So that's a form of gravity for us, bringing us back to balance. And most of the time, it also has a lot to do with cyclical nature. That's it, boys and girls. So Tesla, unfortunately, is already giving off very bad fumes and signs for deterioration shortly. Still, we do acknowledge it may go as high as 340, easily we testing maybe even 350, pretty close, maybe even 350. I can see that going on. I can absolutely see that happening, given the range of resistances and the very narrow band of resistances and wedges that we have right here. I'm not going to be surprised to see the price actually sort of make it all the way into here, retest these, and then eventually break out of them, giving us the handle of 350. But we are extremely close to a breakdown. And given how oftentimes the market is close to these territories and already identifies that things may play out one way or another. And by the way, just today, the earnings report may change things just for a couple of days, and maybe we're going to see a volatile day or two and still proceed with the trend as the market has done before, just to accomplish and fulfill, sort of finalize that overall process. We've seen the market being, thrown out of balance by these events, but usually they don't last too long. And if they do persist, those are the sort of intended directional movements anyways, meaning if the market was ready to break and had all the conditions, so that would have been the event to break it. And yeah, that's just kind of it. I mean, from there on out, you're not going to make it. Of course, if you start breaking fully, you're probably only going to make it on this cycle, maybe on the next cycle, if at all, because it depends on how many times you've sort of retested and are you ready to drop down if the cycle requires so. That's it, boys and girls. This is Tesla for you. I hope you are now up to speed and you understand kind of the directional movement and why we're expecting the price action of Tesla to behave one way or another, and how is it related to the indices. And that's it. And I hope to see you in the community. Join in. You'll learn a whole new skill set. In fact, if you want to, you can sign up to my one-on-one academy. Let me bring it up onto the screen so you know how to sign up and sort of have a little bit of a summary of the thing, right? If you know what I mean. Let me just sort this out. This is sort of what the Academy offers. It also gives you basically a lifetime of all the perks in the Discord. Patreon is just the gateway, right? Just join Patreon. You join through the Patreon, and then on Patreon you get all the instructions and directions on how to get to Discord. Join in, connect your accounts if need be, and all that beautiful stuff. Yeah, so join in on patreon.com. That is patreon.com/investory. Join in. You'll be able to be privy to all my video exclusives, private content for my community. Come and hang out with us, join meetings, be privy to my portfolio, what I buy, what I sell, when, how, and why. That's it, boys and girls. I hope to see you in the community very, very, very soon, because there's plenty of crazy shenanigans to come from the market. As we're seeing so far, the market is closing the gap, as I've made a prediction in my video. So far, so good. It may, turn around, but it appears to be that the momentum is slowly moving to the downside more than it is to the upside. Basically, more of our momentum is downwards looking, at least at the moment, to close that gap. And subsequently, yes, to lead and continue into what the larger time frames are dictating, which appears to be more or less kind of sideways price action. I'm not going to be surprised if today is going to be rather tame until we get into the evening and where we're going to start getting our various earnings reports, whether it's Alphabet, whether it's Tesla, whether it's General Electric, you name it, all sorts of CME, you name it, all sorts of big names are going to be reporting today. Love you all, boys and girls. I hope to see you in the community soon. As I said, bye for now.